everybody. It's Karen Folan. I'm here to give you all a little bit of an overview about one of the Black Eyed Susan nominees for this year, 2025-26 competition. And she is Kayvion Lewis, and the book is Thieves' Gambit. Again, high school level, Black Eyed Susan nominee for 25-26. And today I'm going to tell you a little bit about the book, give you an overview, give you some teaching resources you could use to encourage either your faculty members or your students to pick up this one and give it a read. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the author, and I have some cool handouts for you as well that I'll be showing you on the screen, as well as giving you as a something to take home to perhaps use as promotional material. So, Thieves' Gambit. It has a sequel, Heist Royale. Talk a little bit about that one as well. I'm going to start it off by showing you my effort at a book trailer. Those are really good ways to motivate your students to pick up a book, particularly if you use either a sharing platform like a kiosk or something like that, where they can look at book reviews, or if you use social media. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. I did that entirely on Canva. Even the music was a Creative Commons open license on Canva. And it just shows you how much you can do with a basic tool and basic knowledge. So I'm sure those of you who are more creative can come up with something that looks much better, but does give students an idea about what the, and staff an idea about what the book is about, and perhaps entice them to read it. Now, I want to give you a little bit more background on the book. Let me share with you. All right. I'm sharing with you a handout that I'll be giving to you at the end of this short presentation. This is a handout about Thieves' Gambit, the BES nominee. Here is the author, that's Kayvion Lewis, Kayvion, I believe she pronounces it, and the book cover. So here are the major hooks that you might offer your students and your staff who might be interested in including this in their ELA teaching or ELD teaching for the fall. It is a very fast-paced book, important for teens. It introduces a world that's rarely been written about for a teen audience, an international world of high-stakes heists. So if you're thinking like Mission Impossible, it has that cinematic quality to it. There is a romance. There are lots of twists. It has, as I alluded in the video, betrayal, and secrets are revealed, and unexpected plot twists coming in and out. So it's the kind of book that can be very engaging for teens. It is about, in more depth, Rosalind, called Roz, or Ross, Quest, who has every ambition of being a normal teenager until her mother is kidnapped on their last heist together. And Roz has been invited to participate in the Gambit, which is run by this undercover organization. And she had no intention of doing it until her mother was kidnapped. And then that throws her into that world because she desperately needs to win this prize, this one wish, which could be anything. The organization has the deepest of possible pockets, and nothing is impossible. So that pits her against these other teens. They're all from different parts of the world. They are all out for this one wish. There is a no holds barred series of heists that they have to complete first or in the top three in order to stay a part of the gambit and to be able to continue to participate. So, as Roz is participating, she begins to make alliances, but her family motto is don't trust anyone who isn't a quest. And yet she finds herself drawn to various members of the her competition, including the handsome and charming Devereaux Kenzie. So we get a little bit of a romance happening there. So that's pretty much a quick and dirty overview. You could read it in more detail when you get the handout. I have included some information about where you can find it. I believe almost all of the major book jobbers that a lot of us use, like Follett and Baker and Taylor, have it. Obviously, commercial booksellers as well. And it is also available as an ebook and an audiobook. So I've read it, and I can tell you that, yes, it is very fast paced. I love that the heroine is a young woman of color. She's actually Caribbean. And I love that her competition are young people from all over the world. It is a diverse and international cast. And that helps to really make it more interesting when their various points of view are brought in from where they're from, and their various reasons for competing in the gambit are revealed. So the writing style, as I said earlier, very cinematic. It does feel like you're reading a movie, which is great, again, for a teen audience. And as many of you who work with this age group know, a lot of young people like to see an element of romance in these books, and we definitely have that as well. There's chemistry between Devereaux and Roz, and they both have their issues with getting close, which makes for a very fun and enthralling kind of read. But there's only a single kiss in it, so you don't have to worry about any parent being upset about the content of this book in any way. So for those who get the student who asked, I read, this other book, what else can I read that's like it? The students who love the Hunger Games, the students who love the Inheritance Games, if any of them have read The Conspiracy of Us, any of those kinds of books that have kind of a fast-paced, action-based with a romantic element, that's what this book is. Those are the similar ones that you might have a student who has finished one of those series or read one of those books and might be looking for the next thing. I want to tell you a little bit more about the author. Now, this is a threefold brochure. You're looking at it, obviously, on my screen, not three-folded. So your first page would be the one here on my far right. She is a YA librarian turned bestseller writer, which for us, I think, is really, really cool. I don't know if any of you have dreamed of being a writer, but I certainly have made efforts in that direction. So it's just really cool to see a young person who had that happen, and very exciting the way it did. So this YA librarian had a dream about a high stakes heist book for young people, and woke up and wrote it down. And then when she got to work, she went searching for books like this, thinking, oh, I'd love to read something like that. And finding nothing, decided that she would write something like that. She had already written one book called The Half Class, and you'll see the cover images for that in just a bit, and felt equal to the task. So she has described the book herself as The Inheritance Games meets Ocean's 11. So it is that kind of story. And, the center image here is really the back of my brochure, which tells you where you can find her online and in social media. So on the right, again, you see the three books that she has written: The Thieves' Gambit, which we've been talking about; Heist Royale, which is the sequel, came out about a year later, came out last fall, November 2024, I believe. Which is the continuation of Roz and Devereaux's story, as well as most of the other teens with whom she competed in Thieves' Gambit. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give it away. And then The Half Class, which apparently I think is going to be reissued, but right now it's out of print, which is about a young lady who is kind of mixed race. She's not a dark and she's not a bright, but she is a rebel against a social system that classifies people as one or the other. And she's trying to bring that down. Obviously, I haven't read that one. It's out of print, but it does sound interesting. And it does lead me right into some of the themes that you would find in Kayvion Lewis's books. So diversity is a big one. Social justice is a big one. And delving into identity. Who am I really? Am I what my family says I am? Am I what society says I am? You know, where do I fit in? Those are all major themes in both Thieves Gambit, Heist Royale, and it sounds like Half Class is the same thing. So there, that makes for the strengths, obviously being diversity being one of them, and being able to talk about those social justice themes is another. But there are also some ethical things that you could talk about here if you want to. I mean, these young people have all been raised to be thieves. And although what they are stealing sometimes may be things that they may have a right to steal, because some of the things they're stealing are artifacts that were stolen from people who were colonized. So you could work some history into a discussion there. You can work some ethics into a discussion there. And of course, the other strength is that these books are very fast paced and highly entertaining. So it's going to make for a read that a lot of young people will enjoy. But I will caution that I do think that they glamorize the lifestyle of these young thieves in ways that, are worth a conversation about, is this really a value that you would want to promote, or that you'd want in your friends, or that you'd want for yourself? Why or why not? So that is a discussion that I would want to have with students about it. But I think because it's largely an escapist novel, it's a short discussion. I think most teens are wise enough to realize that that's what's going on here. All right. One more handout you'll be getting today. I'm on the wrong, no, yes, I'm on the right page, first page. All right, so this is a handout about reviews. For those who might be reviewing it for their school system for the first time to be included in their catalog, or who want to be able to give students or other staff members, parents, recommendations and about where to look for more details about how this book has been rated. So School Library Journal recommended it for high school libraries for its fast-paced, high-tension plot. I think we've talked about that quite a bit. And that's what the reviewers praise, was the fast-paced plot and then the tension of the moral ambiguities of stealing, especially from museums that stole their collections in part, perhaps, from colonized peoples. Kirkus called it a fast-paced roller coaster of a read. You see that fast pace keeps coming up, with fully realized characters, and talks about the love interest, Devereaux, we talked about, but also Ross's childhood enemy, Noelia, who is also a character in this story. And they figure out how can they trust each other now, or do those old grudges still hold sway? Now, the newer book, Heist Royale, also recommended for teenagers. Again, praised for its diversity and likable cast of characters. Again, it's most of the characters from the first book returning, and the same kinds of fast-paced plots, stealing and violence, some scarier situations. There was a car chase, there's wire fraud, there's a kidnapping. There is some more romance, and again, we've got one kiss in the first book and two in the second, which the reviewers highlighted as a, trigger warning or a warning. Kirkus called it a highly entertaining and worthy sequel to Thieves Gambit, and encouraged readers to read the first book first, which I would also recommend. And now Ross is pitted against Devereaux Kenzie and his mother, while she's still kind of got a thing going on with him. So that's a part of the tension going on, and they highlighted it in the Kirkus review. I've given the links where you can check out the full reviews at the end of this page. You should be able to see it right there. If that's something that you would want to follow up on, I've kind of just paraphrased them here and given you a quick synopsis of them. But that is some additional information for you. Now, finally, on this last page, and this is the final handout I have for you, these are some teaching and other resources that I have for you to follow up, perhaps pass along to English teachers if they're considering using the book in any way in their classrooms. That will give you some additional ideas and resources for how to work with the material in the book. Okay, so first of all, as a teaching resource, there's an interview that Kayvion Lewis gave about her time as a librarian and how reading shaped her writing, which I think is really an interesting backstory to give students as they're learning about and reading the book, learning about the author and how she was inspired. I also found a Gambit game. Now, it's one that you'd have to pay a little bit for. It was created by special education teachers and it's on Teachers Pay Teachers, but it's not expensive. It's like $4. And it sets up different Gambit stations where you can kind of role play some of the action based on the book. And I thought that was really interesting and would certainly engage students. Project Lit, the Project Lit project, has based a vocabulary resource based on this book where students can master any words that they're unfamiliar with from the text, which also might be of use to in an English class. Thieves Gambit is the Maryland Association of School Libraries Black-Eyed Susan pick. We talked about that. But because it is a Black-Eyed Susan pick, there are lessons that are set aside about this book that can be used in the classroom. And I've given the link for where you can find that lesson material at MASL. And then finally, this is also a National Team Book Club book for Great Britain. Okay, it's Great Britain. But again, they've provided all kinds of resources that might be useful, as well as author interviews and other feedback that teens could really take advantage of, and so could classroom teachers as well as librarians like us. Other resources, well, Kayvion Lewis, like every young person, what is she, 26, has an Instagram. Most of us do. So that is where she talks about what she's working on, where she's traveling, any upcoming books and appearances. Same for her website, which I have also included. Something I thought was interesting is this next one is crack the code of the high story structure. Sometimes it's interesting to look at the key elements that are involved in a certain type of book. And this is a YouTube site where they talk about what are the key elements of a heist story and how do you put them together, and kind of give you a breakdown of what to look for in that type of novel. A little bit different of a resource, but I thought it was one that if you have students who are interested in writing as well as reading, they might enjoy. The Thieves Gambit initial novel has already been optioned for a movie. And Kayvion Lewis is interviewed talking about how that came about and how a movie deal from a book deal comes about. Interesting thing to discuss as well. And then finally, I have an interview that the author did about her writing process. So, and this one is specifically about putting together the second book in the series, the Heist Royale book. Not our Black-Eyed Susan pick this year, but still, for students who are going to read a little bit more about her and read her next effort. This is her talking specifically about the second book, not the first. All right, everybody. That's what I've got for you. Again, I have all of these additional resources available for you as printouts that you can download and look at and use and share with both staff and students about one of our Black-Eyed Susan nominees for this year, school year 25-26. Hope it helps. Thanks so much for listening and watching.